Hello and welcome to the GSBC podcast, proudly brought to you by the Greater Springfield Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Matthew Taylor-Farrington from Purple Bunny Marketing, and today I am joined by Iain White from White Internet. Thank you for coming along. And we're going to have a chat about Iain's business and what White Internet Consulting does. So, Iain, what led you to establish White Internet Consulting, and how has your experience shaped the services that you offer today?
I think the main thing is that being a chief technology officer for companies big and small, I realised that a lot of the small businesses couldn't afford a full-time person in that role, but they certainly needed the assistance to do tasks. So I've kind of pitched my business at the people before technology and putting forward that even small businesses can benefit from a part-time IT person to help them.
Yes, agreed. I think as a business owner, and I've dabbled in a little bit with IT, you definitely need someone in that space, especially as everything becomes way more digital as the things go on. All right, so your firm provides a comprehensive suite of services from virtual CTO to digital transformation. How do you determine the right solution for each client?
It's all about connecting with the client, what their requirements are, or rather what their goals are. What do they want to achieve? What are they struggling with? What's their pain point? I tend to like to sit down over a cup of coffee, talk about where they want to take their business, what's holding them back at the moment, and that could be engaging as a virtual CTO, or it could be upgrading the equipment as a digital transformation. So basically, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's everything I do is custom based on the client.
Okay, perfect. All right. Inefficient IT infrastructure, it's a common challenge for SMEs. How does your consulting approach address and rectify these inefficiencies?
Well, I start off with, I have a basic checklist that I run through. Again, there's different types of infrastructure in the cloud, on premises, but I cover off what the main points are. I'm able to go to the client with recommendations, whether that's updating software, updating licenses, updating the firmware that it's running on. And we then basically come up with a series of goals and a budget around that, and then I normally do a phased rollout. Doing everything at once can be a bit too much, particularly for an SME. So I pitch it as that you pay for what you need, and if you get to a point where I'm happy with the changes, then you need not pay anymore.
Yes. Yeah, wonderful. All right. Something that's obviously always changing as well, but compliance and regulatory requirements, obviously it can be quite a daunting thing for businesses. How do you assist clients in navigating, I guess, those complexities?
Yeah, once again, it comes down to checklists. I keep my headspace in that area, and therefore I've got a running start on what compliance is. And as I said, I put people first, so I take out the buzzwords. I talk in plain English to the business. Yes. If they have a technical team, I talk techie to them. If they're dealing with an outsource, I can talk technical to them. But at the end of the day, I will have a compliance checklist, and I will make sure that any legal complications are met with real-world understandable, whether that's in making an investment in putting in cyber, or whether it's just a question of generating reports. A lot of the stuff I do is just generating reports to put a tick box for a government or another company.
Yes, and I think you hit the nail on the head there before about talking plain English to people who aren't in the space. I think the biggest thing from a lot of business owners that I hear when the IT stuff comes up, their first thing is, I just want IT that works. I don't care about all the jargon and all the stuff. And I think that's good that you kind of put it in terms that they can understand. So, all right. So data management and analytics, obviously a pivotal in today's business environment. How do you help clients leverage their data-informed decision-making?
Yeah, now the first step is to clean the data, which sounds a little bit scary because you might be losing stuff, but sometimes it's the tree for the forest. You've got so much data, you can't actually make decisions, and that's what the key of it. It is not data for data's sake. It is insight to make decisions, and it's a question of potentially pruning. As I said, people are scared to lose data, but it's narrowing it down. We use Power BI, Tableau. I'm looking at bringing in AI to help some of the number crunching. But at the end of the day, we're looking at getting clear English observations on the data, particularly it's like, oh, you do more sales on Saturday and Sunday than you do during the entire week combined. You might want to up your presence, whether that an online shop to sell at the weekend or you just got an extra staff.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. I think businesses in this day and age, I think from the old school days of storing so much data, now don't understand it. I have the same issue in the marketing field where we've got email addresses that we've collected, but we're sending out emails to them, for example, and that person's not responding anymore, not engaging. And the first thing we do when engaged with that sort of stuff as well is we prune the database. There is no point sending emails to an email address that doesn't exist anymore. There's no point sending it to someone who's not responding or engaging with your mail. So I agree with you. I think sometimes cleansing that data is very important to know what you're actually doing and what's working. But obviously keeping things moving, jumping into the cybersecurity space, it is a growing concern for many organisations and it is a costly thing for especially for SMEs. What strategies do you implement to safeguard your clients' digital assets?
Well, once again, I use a staged approach with it. We start small. I mean, I feel a lot of the cyber vendors out there are looking for big compliance for corporates. And
yes.
That's good, and we need that. But what I start with is good password policies, multi-factor authorization, having a disaster recovery plan.
Yes.
What happens when it all goes? What happens when you roll in Monday morning and your database is down and you've lost half of your email addresses? And how do you contact your customers? Yes. Where are your backups stored? We have a saying in IT: you don't have a backup until you've restored it.
Yes.
And it happens. I've seen that with clients all the time. It's like, I've got a backup, right? We'll put it back and we'll fix it. It didn't work. And that's when the panic happened. And so it's small steps. I mean, I can do full corporate security. I've just been working on a very large security thing for the Port of Melbourne in the last week. But it's the small steps for the SMEs that I think make a big difference, because you can do a lot just to, turn the lock on the door, make sure the window's sealed,
yes,
and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so reflecting on your work, what technological trends do you see emerging among local business?
I say the big thing that is happening in the industry at the moment is migration to the cloud, which is still a lot of the smaller companies are starting to pick up on that. They no longer just have a computer sitting in the back office.
Yes.
And remote working. I mean, not every company can remote work. I totally appreciate that. But there is a certain nuance change with it, particularly from being cyber secure, how they're connected into the system, who gets access to say, if somebody's sitting in a coffee shop doing something, is there a security risk with the Wi-Fi in the coffee shop, that type of thing.
Yes.
So that can overlap with cyber, working from home, and obviously AI. AI is the big thing, and it's, from my point of view, it's how can we automate? How can we take a procedure that takes a week and takes 3 people it takes half an hour, and AI is doing 90% of the lifting. Always have somebody check it afterwards. AI is not perfect,
correct,
but you can simplify and speed up a lot of things. And it's not just using things like ChatGPT, it's actually automating systems out there where you can use like a glue to connect different systems together. And I think a lot of the SMEs aren't even aware these things work.
I agree. I actually, not to shamelessly plug the Hot podcast, which we run, but we recently talked about automation on that podcast, and we talked about tools like Zapier and Pabbly and things like that, where you can connect things and have data moving from one system to another instead of having to have someone manually key, and you reduce error, all those sorts of things.
Oh yeah, I mean there's a lot of systems out there, and they're well worth getting your head around.
Agreed. All right, last question, and then we'll wrap things up. But looking ahead, what innovations or services is White Internet exploring to stay, I guess, at the forefront of tech consulting?
I think the big thing is that I probably spend at least one working day of my week looking at new trends in technology and just to stay up front so I can advise my clients. Things change. Things that were really great even just 2 or 3 years ago are really bad now. So you have to keep up with it. I think from a point of view of what's changed from revolutionary-wise, the AI is going to be the biggest thing.
Yes.
It's hard keeping up with the amount of changes in AI. I dabble a little bit, but it's not my main forte because, as I said, I'm more on the processes, procedures side of it. I do use it to help me keep these up to date and maintain them, but mostly I just do kind of research on my own on a couple of known good sources for it. But I think the things that are going to change is that kind of fact that systems are going to hook into AI and do this automation, as you said.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree more. All right, well, thank you for coming along, Iain, and having a chat and taking us through what you provide and what White Internet Consulting does. And thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the GSBC podcast, brought to you by the Greater Springfield Chamber of Commerce.